The more you know you don't know. Aristotle. I love that quote. I think that the world would improve if more people embraced that and understood that, we all think we know everything. But unfortunately, that's just not true. And the more people that realize this and seek truth for themselves, they'll learn that, holy crap, I don't know much at all. And I firmly believe that this whole world would improve far quicker than we ever thought possible if philosophy was taught to children from the grade school level on up. If we spent less time on crazy math formulas, and I'm not saying we shouldn't teach math, and less time or more time focusing on teaching people how to be less materialistic, to be less ego-driven, and to embrace a more selfless philosophy, like I said, the world would improve far quicker than, well, we ever thought possible. And this reminds me and leads me into my next quote involving communication. The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that has taken place. George Bernard Shaw. And I would argue that, well, communication has always been and probably always will be humanity's greatest obstacle. That, well, what we think at the time and what we say usually doesn't always, that message isn't always delivered. And it's funny. We're in 2017. We have more abilities and technological capabilities of communicating than we've ever had. And yet it seems like communication is getting worse. They're hearing, but they're not listening. Their ears are registering a sound, but they're not processing the information they're receiving. They're not considering an empathetic point of view or picturing themselves in the other person's shoes for just a second and to listen and process what they're trying to tell them. And even we see these issues in text messaging or emails that, someone tries to say something just right and it just gets taken completely out of in just the wrong direction. We know this. There's so much drama in this world. We've all seen it. And like I mentioned earlier, another big problem is materialism, greed. It's like we have this ego-driven desire to just accumulate more things, and where our whole society, at least in Western society for that matter, is all about getting the next best thing, buying things. Look at me, look what I'm wearing, look at my purse, look at my car, look at my house and the neighborhood I live in. I'm not saying that buying things isn't fun and a bad thing at all, but we have gotten to a point, most people I would argue, where, people have spending addictions. People are they're not enjoying their lives like they could, and make no mistake that the desire for materialism is leading to many people's demise. It's leading to depression and allowing themselves to slave at work. And this reminds me of a quote by Erich Fromm. Greed is a bottomless pit which exhausts the person in an endless effort to satisfy the need without ever reaching satisfaction. It's true. People buy things and they're always wanting the next best thing. Oh man, it's a real big problem. And this leads me into another quote, which is quite funny, by comedian George Carlin, the late comedian George Carlin, who stated, "Trying to be happy by accumulating possessions is like trying to satisfy hunger by taping sandwiches all over your body." It's true. Now, in the title of this video, I stated that these would be thought-provoking quotes. So this one is this might rub some people the wrong way, but it will get people thinking. People sometimes rationalize their greed by saying that it is all for the good of their children. But this is nothing but an excuse they use to make their despicable actions appear respectable and praiseworthy. Democritus, and he said this a few thousand years ago. I mean, that is true. I mean, it really is. So many people will spend all their time working and ignore their families, which causes incredible suffering for children in their upbringing. Or that people, in corporate America, and I've seen this myself, where people will step on other people to get to where they want to be, and it can be very ruthless, very dog-eat-dog. A more friendlier way of putting it is by Joseph Campbell. I think a person who takes a job in order to live, that is to say for the money, has turned himself into a slave. Work begins when you don't like what you're doing. There's a wise saying, make your hobby your source of income. Then there's no such thing as work. And then there's no such thing as getting tired. That's been my experience. I did just what I wanted to do. It takes a little courage at first, because who the hell wants you to do just what you want to do? They've all got a lot of plans for you. But you can make it happen. Joseph Campbell. I am living this philosophy now. I've chosen to become a professional YouTuber. I have a master's of business, and I decided midway through that 2-year program that corporate America was going to bring me nothing but suffering. I was driving myself crazy from my prior job, and it's like, so look, anything's possible. Get creative. We all have creativity and imagination. So whatever your hobby is, whatever you spent hours doing when you were a kid, this is what Carl Jung said, by the way. That should be what you spend your earthly time doing. You can find ways to make money doing it. A lot of this falls in line with what Plato said. For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories. Guys, we have so many desires, we have so many ambitions, we allow our egos to get the best of us. I've discussed this a lot in my other videos about taming the animal. That ultimately we all have issues as a species. The human brain is one hell of a thing. But we're brought into this environment. Our society, like I said earlier, this is what it thrives on. This is what we're born into. So take this quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson. To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. So true. Everyone's trying to be just like everyone else. Everyone's trying to fit in. Guys, that's crazy. It really is crazy. You don't want to be the one that stands out and you're the weirdo all of a sudden, but man, that is the direction of happiness. And that reminds me, in this society, you have people, these social justice warriors. You see them on TV, people that are fighting for something that they believe in. And in the process, they go crazy. They cause themselves and others so much suffering. And part of the issue, and this ties back to Plato, is take what Jordan Peterson said. Clean your room. What he's referring to is that we all have problems, and you're not going to be able to help the world or other people until you address your own issues, until you look within, fix your problems, clean your own damn room up, so to speak. Which brings me to Socrates. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. This worked for a lot of people. In fact, Steve Jobs spoke about this. People have an intuitive feeling on what's right and what isn't. So spend all of your time building on what's right as opposed to fighting the old. I mean, take, for example, Dr. Martin Luther King. He understood this. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And oh my God, did that not work? Absolutely. It's like you look at Black Lives Matter and these people that just raise violence and hatred. And it's like, look at what Dr. Martin Luther King did. He said that we're only going to love others. No matter how people treat us, what they say to us, what we do to us, we are going to embrace them with love. And it worked, did it not? He changed the course of history for the entire country forever. Now, I just mentioned truth a second ago, so this brings me into my next quote. Many people, especially ignorant people, want to punish you for speaking the truth, for being correct, for being you. Never apologize for being correct or for being years ahead of your time. If you're right and you know it, speak your mind. Speak your mind even if you are a minority of one. The truth is still the truth. Mohandas Ghandi. That actually leads me into something that Marcus Cicero said. I have always been of the opinion that unpopularity earned by doing what is right is not unpopularity at all, but glory. Now this leads me into my last few quotes, which all have to do with being present and living in the moment. Pythagoras said, the art of living happily is to live in the present, but he's not the only one that has stated this. The future is a concept. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now. That's one of the things we discover when we stop talking to ourselves and stop thinking. We find there is only the present, only an eternal now. Alan Watts. Which of course reminds me of Eckhart Tolle. Humans are never fully present in the now, because unconsciously they believe that the next moment must be more important than this one. But then you miss your whole life, which is never not now. For real, I cannot begin to tell you how much my life has improved once I started embracing this philosophy of living in the present moment. It's true. There is no tomorrow. There is no yesterday. Yes, tomorrow will come. Yesterday happened, of course. But it's always right this instant. And we spend so much time thinking about the future, about the past, that we drive ourselves crazy. We spend our lives not enjoying it, because you can't enjoy it when you're lost in your thoughts like that. I know this. And it's something you can practice on. Believe me. I highly recommend you look into the works of Eckhart Tolle and Alan Watts. And in fact, this leads me into one last quote. And I'm going back to Joseph Campbell again. You are the hero of your own story. Joseph Campbell. It's amazing on how many people have been influenced by this quote, myself included. I mean, that's something I'm embracing. Live your life. I mean, guys, map out your life on what it would be that if you had to write a story, an adventure story, what would it be? Become that. Guys, life is short, but you can become anything. The power of your intentions and the will to power cannot be overstated. I've discussed this in other videos. Embrace this. This has worked for many other people. We all have choices. Nothing's easy. You need courage, but you can do it. So anyways, guys, I'm Jimmy. This is Bright Insight. Like and subscribe. Leave me a comment, and I have many other videos to come real soon. Take care, everybody.